Hello everyone, welcome to chapter 113 on my RLDR Custom Creations YouTube channel. Today, I'm busy getting ready for students coming into the shop tomorrow, and in this chapter, we're playing with sandpaper. If you want to see what I'm going to do with this, all you need to do is stay tuned. Well, since I've got a piece of sandpaper in my hand and I'm standing next to my dual drum sander or thickness sander, I guess you can kind of figure out that this week's video is going to be about changing paper on the dual drum sander. Now, this paper, okay, first of all, you should never let your paper get that bad, but this can happen fairly quickly. Uh, Unfortunately, we lack really nice hardwoods in this province. So to work with local woods, I'm usually sanding pine. And the jack pine here is quite, what's the word I'm looking for? Sappy, like full of full of resin. And it's hard on sanding. It's hard on abrasives. So this paper can get this way. Now, sanding birch when we do a longboard or whatever, that's much easier on the sandpaper. But inevitably, whatever you're sanding, it's going to need to be changed eventually. Now, changing the paper on its own isn't necessarily worthy of a YouTube video. There's, even the instruction booklets. I remember when the school got our general equivalent to this. Basically, the instructions were fairly specific and kind of easy to follow. There's only one thing that I do that's a little bit different, and I use spray adhesive to attach these onto the rollers. And I find that that works really, really well. I got this idea from a friend of mine. Unfortunately, he's since passed away. But he was really, really good when it came to figuring out how to do things. And what he did is he built his own thickness sander. He just made a single drum, but he was a self-taught machinist, and everything was really, really well done on that sander. There was no adjusting from side to side because the drum was always parallel to the base, and it was really well done. But he had an end keeper system like these drums have, but he decided that it worked better if he glued the paper on. And I thought, you know what, he spent a lot of time with this. I'm going to try it too. And you know what? I really liked it. When I was working with students in the high school system, um, often this sander or sanders like this pose a problem because students at times will tend to take too big a pass at one time. And that's really, really hard on the paper on these things. It can tear the paper right off the rollers. And we had it. It would break at the end or right in the middle here, it would break or tear and then start flapping, and then you got to change it. So I found that when I started gluing things down, we got much better performance out of the paper. And that's one thing that I really appreciated, because if this went down during a class, chances are it was down for the rest of the day, because this takes a little while to change all this. First of all, you've got to cut your paper or take the paper off, clean the rollers, cut your paper, and this takes just shy of 8 feet of paper. This is 5-inch wide paper on this Steel City machine. I think I'm not very familiar with brands that you can purchase in the US. My I'm more familiar with Canadian stuff, and right now the I think this machine is basically what the King brand of machine is in Canada. It has a little more width than the General, and it goes up to, I think, 12 inches of depth. So it's got a little more capacity, but essentially it's the same machine. So, but these machines, even though they may differ slightly with paper requirements, they're all very similar. So yeah, this is 5-inch wide paper, and to do both rollers, you're looking at about 16 feet of paper. And I buy this paper in the big roll. I think it's, is it 25 yards? So 25, so about 75 feet. So yeah, and 75 feet of this paper I think cost me over $100. So it's not cheap. So I want to make sure that I get maximum usage out of these, of each change of sandpaper. So with that in mind, yesterday when I filmed this originally, um, we had some audio trouble. So yeah, that was a bit of a problem. And you'll see me doing, or you'll hear me doing voiceovers on the rest because I just can't reshoot all of this. And it was the day though, just before classes started, I went and redid the oscillating spindle sander, the 12-inch disc sander, and my uh, horizontal sander back there. Um, Rather than a belt disc sander, I have a longer, um, basically, yeah, you know what? I don't know, I forget what it's called. I hate this when you're trying to shoot a video and you forget what your sanders are called. But anyway, so yesterday was replace the paper day, trying to get ready for students using this stuff. So anyway, what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll show you the process of changing this paper and applying adhesive to the back. Okay, it should be fun.
And there we are. I'm showing off the two types of glue that I used. As my friend Vern always used, the cheapest in this situation, that's what I'm doing as well. And I've got the Elmer's out ready to go. But there's some Gorilla Glue there. And if you are really, really serious, Super 77 would probably work as well. Had a little trouble with the nozzle here. You'll see in a bit that when I let go, the nozzle doesn't quit spraying. So that's that was interesting. But notice I'm trying to give this a fairly good coat because you want it to get quite tacky, and you'll see later that it actually does. One of the things that people get a little bit concerned about is that when you want to take this paper off the rollers, that you're going to have to tear it off in little pieces. That's definitely not the case. It pulls off really nicely. The only thing that I do, and I won't show it to you in this video, but I take a piece of cloth and lacquer thinner, and look how nice and clean those drums are. So I clean them off nicely. It doesn't take long at all, and I think I've found that it's maybe a bit more efficient with the glue to put the paper on the front roller first, because that way, in theory, any overspray that you get goes onto the back roller, and when you're doing the back roller, hopefully you're spraying past the front roller. I haven't had problems with glue residue on the sandpaper, so it seems to work out fairly well. Running the sander is a good way to do this. Make sure you keep your fingers and everything out of the reach of the things that can grab you. This works really well. I think one of the things that you want to do is remember, when you see me starting to wrap the paper, you'll notice that I'm always moving from left to right, because there's an automatic tensioner on the, trying to get the nozzle to stop spraying. But there's an automatic adjuster on the right side of the drum when you're facing it. So I always try to work towards that. And here now I'm getting ready to put the new paper onto the roller. And I left this in. I debated whether I should speed this up because it is a little bit boring, but I thought maybe it would be good for you to see the challenges with getting this started properly. I think there are challenges even when you're not putting glue on the paper, but there are also are challenges with the adhesive. And you can see that I'm not happy with the way it's starting because you need to get it to roll flat on the roller and kind of get that right pattern, if you know what I mean. You'll see it when I get a little bit further on. I probably didn't do a great job of explaining that, but I go back and forth here a number of times. And the reason I left this in is because you should see this, that it's not just uh, putting it on and rolling it on. It's just maybe not quite that easy. So you'll notice also how sticky this is all becoming. Look at me trying to get my fingers off of the back of the paper. It's really tacking up good. But like I said in the previous section, when you're going to take this off of your rollers, it's not a problem. It'll come right off. And like I said, all I do is I wipe the rollers down with a little bit of lacquer thinner and away we go. So I think maybe now I'm getting it, but it is a bit of a challenge. So the comment I made about maybe this machine, if it broke during the day at school, that it would be down for the rest of the day, I think that's accurate because this takes a little while. And I was never one just to let kids loose and not supervise them properly in the shop. So this would have been an after hours thing I would have done. So eventually I do get this right. And once I'm rolling, once I'm happy with it, it goes fairly nicely. So I think I'm slowly getting there now. This, like, oh, look at that. It's really getting sticky. Okay, and now I think I'm on a roll here. No pun intended. It's starting to go on the way it should. I will actually to kind of um, put this in its final position, or theoretically final position. I will run a board through here, and I'll show you that yet, and show you how I do that to try to wrap the paper a little tighter yet. So yeah, it's slowly going. Want to have no gaps between the paper, but also no overlap. Overlap will kill the paper quickly. That's what I've found anyway. So I'd rather have a wee little bit of a gap between the layers of paper than having one overlap the other. And yes, I'm slowly making headways here. What you're going to notice when I get to the end is that the paper doesn't quite cover the roller. So there's a little bit of the aluminum roller sticking out past the paper. And you'd think, well, maybe you should just make the paper longer, but that isn't the solution here. I think it's meant to be that way because if I'd make the paper longer, it would not click in the automatic attachment at the end here. So you'll notice that this is going to tuck in pretty much perfectly. So the length of the paper is correct. There's just a little bit at the end. Now, I think that's just the way it is. Like maybe different thickness of paper would help, but anyway.
Well, it's ready to go. I didn't bore you with having you watch me put the second roller paper on. It's exactly the same as the first. So, in fact, I find the second one a little easier to do because I've learned everything that I've forgotten about putting the first one on, and it usually goes a little faster. But again, no need to show you that. One thing I like to do after I finish putting the paper back on is I like to sand with it. And I'll start this board or whatever board I have. This is a piece of spruce. And I'll start at this end and I'll work my way across to kind of push everything towards the end so that the clip can tighten it up. Not sure how effective that is, but it's a habit I have, and it's something that I'm going to keep doing. Now, I just realized that I need to run the dust collection for this. It's going to be fairly loud, but I turned the dust collector off at the other switch, so I'll be right back. There you go. I don't know how much of this you can see, but it's nice and tight, nice and flat on the roller. And I'm hoping it's going to last a long time. In the school system, when I got it on, or the paper on like this, and my students were careful with how much they took off on each pass, I would get a semester out of a setup of paper, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, this system has worked really well for me. And if you're having trouble with your dual drum sander, I have found this to be a really good solution. One of the things that you'll notice when I was putting the paper on, and I have to do the voiceover yet, but you can see how sticky it was on my hands by the time I got this on. Yeah, it's good, but you know what? When you want to release it, just unclip the ends and pull it off. It's really quite simple. So anyway, we're going to come back and we're going to close this video off. Well, I hope that was helpful for you. It's funny how when you're doing this for the camera, little things that normally work out would work out. I had no idea that this nozzle was so stuck that once I pressed it and got it spraying, it wouldn't stop. So I have glue all over the place where I normally wouldn't. Whether you use this Elmer's or Gorilla Glue or whatever, it doesn't matter. The friend of mine that showed me how to do this just always used the cheapest glue he could find, which is great. Oh, and one other mistake I need to correct. Remember the sander? I couldn't think of the name. Yeah, it's oscillating edge sander. So it's a King version. And I really like that sander. It works really well. So anyway, yeah, I like putting the glue on. It seems to hold the paper better. It works really well, and basically it seems to help the paper stay on the roll longer. And anything that can cut your costs down when you're running a shop like this is really, really good. So with that in mind, just remember to like, share, and subscribe. Oh, by the way, that's the end of this video. And we will see you on the weekend edition. So take care and have a great rest of the week.